Hello, everybody. I am Elmer Dayton here with the IJJ News, the best source of news here in this state. I'm here today with the mayor candidate here, Mr. Moxley. I'll allow him to introduce himself.
Howdy, folks. If you don't know me, my name's Moxley Johnston. I'm currently employed as a chief deputy with the sheriff's office, and I'm currently running for mayor on two main key points that I think have lacked from our last candidacy, and that is transparency and accountability.
Okay, so let's get this interview underway. So, Moxley, as mayor, you gave your 2 points. Could you explain to us why past mayors has not really focused on these and why the people running against you are, not going to do this?
Well, I can't necessarily speak for the people running against me, but I can speak on the past mayorship, and that's kind of the reason that I've ran. I believe that accountability is certainly not there. I believe, given that they kept certain members of that council employed for the entirety or almost the entirety of the candidacy and the term, when they know that that person or persons were specifically stating that it was okay to go out there and do crime and be gang affiliated and stuff. Keeping somebody who's affiliated on a council is a little bit of a red flag. I got to be honest. And I also believe that transparency is key. When I announced my candidacy about a week ago publicly, I pretty much outlined everything. I outlined everybody I choose to pick for my council. I put out my public supporters and endorsements and donors, and what I plan to focus on with my first day, and honestly, the first things I plan to bring up.
Okay, well, talking more about the council of the city. So, could say that you're currently not happy with our current council that we have.
That would be correct. Yes, I believe that the fights going on within the council and the brooding going on between the council and the mayor is very concerning. I think that not enough people are standing up and asking what in the hell is going on behind them locked doors. You know what I'm saying? And honestly, I've had my own run in with the council and the mayorship in my removal as commissioner. I was never informed. I ended up learning through public relations, i.e., Squawk was how I found out about my termination. And it was actually a key point of the last mayor as to her running was my endorsement and me as commissioner for the term. So I do believe that there needs to be accountability there, which with her dropping out of the race, I respect that and see that as accountability and water under the bridge. But I still do plan to continue to run because my focus isn't just on accountability of those in the past, but accountability on current public officials. I've mentioned within my first day vibes in my statement there that I do plan to look into different management within the hospital. I do plan to keep Commissioner Justin Time within the LSPD. And I do also plan to look at our current Chief Justice and see as to whether or not we need a new one placed in there.
Okay, so from the sounds of it, you're going to be replacing a lot of people that need, justice that need replacement. Well, in that, do you have any names that you could probably list of certain people that you want to, put on the council or, like you said, maybe replacing the chief justice with?
Absolutely. So when it comes to the chief justice and the hospital management and kind of shifting some things around, I don't want to put 2 feet ahead of myself and get too crazy with it. So I haven't really dived too far into it, but I would say that our court system and our hospital management is something that needs to be looked into. Just from a citizen standpoint, I've always had run-ins that are less than great. Um, and I think that there could be some more success in that realm. As for the city council itself, absolutely. For my PD liaison, I'm looking at bringing in Captain Drew Arnold of the LSPD, who just recently conceded from his own mayor campaign there. As for hospital liaison, I'm looking at Dr. Julian Carter, who's a medical doctor at Vespucci. Court liaison would be Attorney Redfield, Alexander Redfield. And as the civilian representative for businesses and treasurer, I'm looking at Michael Wave, who is the current co-owner of Vinny's Vineyard.
That is good to hear. I personally have met a few of them people, and I can say that they are quite. At least Drew, I've met him. He's a quite a
Yeah,
good cop, and I believe he could do some good in the council.
agreed.
Speaking on a different topic, so I personally have been on a PD ride along recently. What is your like focus on crime with all these gangs going around destroying this lovely city that we currently live in?
Well, one of the things that I do agrees with from our Chief Justice and what he placed recently on Squawk was that he's declaring war on all gangs. So he stated that. Um, uh, well, I understand the predicament with how frequent we see gang on gang violence. In fact, just before this meeting, I was dealing with gang on gang violence. I think there needs to be more suppression from the police in that sense. So far, the ideology of both the police department and the sheriff's office has been to take a backseat stage and to try to prevent any further loss of life outside of the gang on gang violence. I do believe that there should be more uh, involvement from the police department and the sheriff's office, not only in apprehending the members of these gangs and shutting them down entirely, but also in the sense of keeping the peace, especially in public areas. So my plan is to bring forward as much resources as needed without overstepping the amount of city budget, because quite honestly, a lot of our budget goes into the police department and the sheriff's office, and I'd like to divvy that up a little bit more and put more into the hands of the citizens. Which, as long as you don't mind me capitalizing on it, I think it would benefit your business. I plan on looking at introducing something, a 501c3, which would be a nonprofit organization. I do believe this is something that city government could kind of keep an eye on when it comes to businesses such as yours, where there isn't a whole lot of profit that goes into it, but it's a very admirable business that needs a little bit of money to get themselves going. And so, applying for a nonprofit organization would allow for a little bit of funding and some tax exempt on what you guys do make. So that's one of the things I do look at doing on my first day there, along with focusing on the lowering the cost of living. I think it's absolutely insane that it costs over $300 for me to fill up my gas tank. So whether that means finding a way to lower gas prices and price gouging from the gas stations, similar to what happened to you two a few months ago, or whether it means looking at eliminating a gas tax overall, just specifically on gas, I'm not sure. But I do plan on finding a way to get that lowered.
That is great to hear. So, speaking more on the city budget,
Yeah.
so you said that it's mainly is split between the departments, BCSO and LSPD. Does any of that budget say go into maybe the medical services office currently, or is that
Yes.
something you want to
So
change?
So the way that budget's been, and I'm clearly not the mayor yet, so there's probably some stuff behind the scenes that I don't know about. And again, bringing up that transparency there, but in the sense of what I do understand is that budget gets divided between now the BCSO, the LSPD, the medical center, and the court system. That's my understanding so far. I don't know how much is reserved and given to businesses for a start off or a startup, but I do believe that I've seen a lot of businesses start up, struggle, and fizzle out. And I want to try and prevent that from happening and help people chase the American dream. And honestly, the biggest loss that we take as a state is in money to the police department. Just yesterday, there was 75,000 that was lost in court funds. So I'm not quite sure if there's a reserve that the federal government could put in place for that, but I'd like to put more money into the hands of the people, i.e., bringing up minimum wage, um, employee commissions. So if you would work at Benny's or Horny's or any of the sort, and you're the employee at the front desk, not all that money that the business is making is going straight into the owner's pocket, but then also the employees at a lower level. I think that's important as well. So that's something I'm looking at there. Especially when it comes to helping these businesses and even helping businesses get a jump start. Max Sharp and Kai Wicks have come to me about starting Tow Bros, and I think a separate entity for a tow business is absolutely something that should be started. So I do plan on working on that as well. So we've certainly got a full plate for when we get in there, but hopefully we'll be able to clean up this mess of what's happened over the last 2 months with our prior term, and hopefully introduce some new ideas at the same time.
Well, that is great to hear. But going back to criminal activity, I had one more
Yeah,
question.
sure.
So I last night and many times before have witnessed individuals shoot at the police at individuals who do not deserve being shot, and they go to jail, get out, and then they get back out and just go right back to causing harm to other individuals and other businesses. Is there any sort of, like, action that you wish to take to maybe keep those people where they need to be behind bars, or teaching them how not to commit crime and maybe become a productive member of society?
Well, I believe that reformation starts with the actual jail system itself, right? And so far, if you take a peek at our jail system, how many employees do they have? Not a single one. So I would like to see if we can't get a little bit of funding moved towards the sheriff's office here, in terms of getting a correctional facility actually fitted out with correctional officers or even sheriff's officers as a subdivision. I think that some human interaction in the jails could definitely help with that. And I do think a push for some precedent with the courts to allow for more community service with businesses could certainly help as well. I think that your employee there behind the camera, who I don't want to name, is a great example, though, of reformation when done right. I mean, this gentleman here, he's now holding down a job, and he's filming us right now, and he's shown that reformation can happen with a criminal. And I do believe that everyone in the state deserves a second chance. Now, does everybody in the state deserve 450 chances? Maybe not. Maybe, we look at some form of a life sentence being integrated and used a little bit more proactively. But I do believe that reformation is a very, very important part of the state that's been kind of overlooked and should probably be looked at more.
Yes, I totally agree with that. But now, speaking on your current employment, you work for the sheriff's office here in Blaine County. Going into the mayor's office, I mean, some might have the dumb idea that you might show partiality toward the sheriff's office as opposed to other departments like the Los Santos Police Department or the medical services we have here. What do you say to people who might have that idea?
Well, I can say that that certainly won't be the case. When I released all my information about a week and a half ago, um, Mr. Allen did comment on my campaign and said that I'd be focusing on hospital, I'd be focusing on PD. I do want to put forward that I was the one who brought up the 501c3 nonprofit organization ideology, the employee commission ideology, and a bunch of other things as well. I plan to pump more money into the hands of the people than I do into the hands of the departments. There's absolutely no reason that a police department should need nearly half of city budget to stay afloat. That just shouldn't be possible. If police officers were trained a little bit better, they wouldn't be getting taken to court all the time. So it's just my thought process on it as somebody who's been arguing in the courtrooms recently. Um, and it comes down to that accountability point of um, holding these officers accountable for their actions. But to kind of circle back to your initial point and not get as far off topic, I plan on putting more money into the hands of the people than the departments. The only thing that I'm looking at doing specifically with the LSPD and the BCSO is to reinstate Commissioner Time as commissioner for my cycle. And in the terms of BCSL, the only funding besides what they need to employ their people that I plan to put forward is towards the potentiality of opening up a subdivision that would help with correctional institutions. When it comes to the medical department, I plan to kind of not necessarily clean house, but move some people around. I think there needs to be a leadership change over there. But again, not looking to pump anything more into their pockets than what they need to stay afloat. So, in short term, there won't be any sort of partiality to the police departments, just whatever they need to stay afloat. and I plan on putting more money into the hands of the people, whether that mean unemployment or nonprofit organizations, employee commissions, and the like.
That is fantastic to hear. And my final question will be, so obviously money is not infinite and there's not, just a copious amount of it. So with all these ideas that you have, raising minimum wage, opening up, starter funds or whatever, and, helping the people out in that way, where will all this money come from?
That's a great question. And to give you the short answer here, it comes from the federal government, and how much is predetermined. So I this is just me being transparent. I'm not able to decide on an amount that we get. I can certainly lobby for it and try to get more, but I think our economy right now is tanking. To be honest with you, all of our money's been going into the sheriff's office and the police department, and we've had no way of helping the people get out of this hole, this red hole of being in debt. So, while I can't speak on exactly how much will go into funding for the public and to help uh, make these ideas a reality, I will vouch that I'm going to fight with my entire heart and soul to make them a reality, whatever it takes.
Well, I love to hear that. Now that closes my questions. I would love for you to give a statement for the camera on, some final arguments or whatever you might like to say in this final segment.
Well, I'll keep it short and simple. If you want trust, transparency, and accountability, y'all know I'm not a politician at heart. I always speak my mind. Maybe I shouldn't speak it as much as I do, but I think that being straightforward and honest with people is the best thing you can be. So if you want somebody who's straightforward and honest and just simply wants to see the state and its inhabitants follow the American dream of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, vote Moxley Johnston for mayor.
Well, in that, I wish you luck and in your pursuit of becoming mayor. And you know what? I'll leave it off here. I thank you very much for allowing us to give you this interview.
Thank you so much for your time, gentlemen. I really appreciate this.
Oh yeah, thank you again.
No problem.
Hello, everybody. I'm Elmer Dayton here with the IJJ News. I'm here with James Allen, the mayor candidate that sits on this couch. I'm going to allow him to introduce himself before I start asking any questions. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is James Allen. I'm one of the candidates for the mayoral to be part of this beautiful state we've got here. I'm a businessman by nature, so I'm hoping that sort of seeks through to some of my votes and some of my ideas that I've got here. And I'm all about the people.
Okay, so you say you're all about the people. So what exactly in your mayor candidacy or your term will you do to try to help the people?
So at the moment, obviously, as we know, these dark early nights, the winter's coming, and people are all shoved into these tiny apartments that are all the same. And I think that people are growing tired of these small spaces. So I'd like to introduce a way that people can begin to purchase houses of their own, spread their own, and start their own families. I think that's most important, not only now for the winter, but also for the summer as well, just to allow people to sort of expand out and start their own families, start their own ideas, and have a nice place to store all their stuff.
That is a fantastic thing to hear. But, well, with houses, of course, houses cost money, land costs money. And some might say the economy doesn't really provide a good source of income to allow certain classes of people to purchase a home or such. So, what do you say to the accusations that, maybe our economy needs some sort of tweaking or help?
So I think a big part of it is minimum wages. With minimum wages being across the state at the moment, they're averaging around 80, 90, 100 US dollars, which obviously is in our current economy right now is not great. I mean, things are increasing in prices and everything just seems to be going up in price. So I think for that, we obviously need a sort of boost in the minimum wage. And now that money just doesn't come from anywhere, right? I mean, it comes from a generic sort of high population. So I think with our highest earners inside of the state, they do need to be taxed slightly more than people so that the people who are on the lower end of the spectrum of the income can have more options available to themselves. So with purchasing properties, if we just go straight to that point, there is options available for any citizen, regardless of their wage. They can rent apartments, they can rent a house, or they can take out a mortgage option.
That is a pretty good idea. I like the sounds of that. Kind of flipping over to from the economy to crime. So right before, of course, this interview happened, you had an attempt on your life just here at your business. What are you going to try to do to stop crime and criminals from committing murders, different kinds of violences on the civilians of this city?
So I think at the moment we have one generic sort of police section or police department. I think what we do need to do is utilize skill sets. So right now we might have a certain officer of the law who's specializes in, for example, they're good. They've grown up with weapons. They're a great shot. We might have someone else who is great at investigations, and right now we need to utilize those skills and make sure that those people are in the right places. So I think creating subdivisions. I mean, I can't necessarily say directly that this is going to happen because I don't have whole control over it. But I think a push for sort of subdivisions within police to bring out those skill sets within people. For example, like we could talk about an anti-gang task force or a crime investigation unit that right now could be a smaller department, but needs to have much more funding put into it, and making sure that those skill sets from those individual officers are brought out to light.
So speaking more on a gang sort of task force, the gangs in the city just keep seeming to get bigger and bigger and more violent every day. So looking more directly at the gangs, what they do with their leadership, where their leaders have been caught multiple times committing violent crimes, they've been thrown in jail, and then just to get out and do it all over again. What would you say would be a good solution to ending that cycle?
I think it's important to realize that these people will commit. I mean, our churn rate for people being in and out of prison is at an all-time high. I mean, people, to be honest, the laws aren't strict enough, and that's my honest opinion with that. And I think that these people who run these organizations have so much money flowing in and out of their accounts that these minor fines don't really do a whole lot to them. Whereas if we can increase those fines, it's not only going to provide more income for the state, but it's also going to be a deterrent for people to commit these crimes. And now it isn't necessarily a direct repellent from it, but it's a way for people to realize that their actions do have consequences. And if they can put a stop even to one part of their operation, I think that's very successful. Because we've got to know that if you stop one drug dealer, if you take him down, the next guy next to him is going to pick up the exact operations that he left behind. So there's no way to stop it entirely, and I'm never going to ever lie about that. But there's a way that you can make it a deterrent to make them stop and think before they commit something. Is this really worth the last 12 hours of my time spending at a job to now waste it all?
Okay, well, let's just say, would you have any idea of maybe, say, a life in prison system for like violent people who kill people, who, murder and steal and take with pleasure, instead of mainly just, I mean, drug dealers and such are bad, but I'm talking more of murderers, people who go around and think, oh, if I kill this person, it's not that big of a deal. I'll go to jail and get back out and I can kill other people. Would you ever think of a system where they go into jail and never see the light of day again?
I think it's a very strong topic, and I think it requires lots of discussion before a direct opinion is made. Do I agree with lifetime jail? I do. However, I don't think that's always the correct approach for these people, purely because prisoners take so much money away from the average taxpayer that by having them sit in a prison for the rest of their life is just going to consume more tax money from regular, ongoing, everyday citizens. So whether there needs to be a more serious system than that, or even just a rehabilitation system that we can ask these people who are in these jails, we can provide a system for them that allows them to merge back into society as a normal everyday citizen. However, these, like you mentioned, these big time criminals who are blatant murderers and killers and these big time people, I do think that they need a more serious sort of action. However, it would just need more discussion on the exact approach for that, because I really don't want people paying that with their taxes, having someone sit there all day in prison.
Very good. So speaking on some more things with the mayor. So the current council, I know there's certain people not happy with it. If you could, I mean, you don't have to name any sort of names or such. Are you currently happy with the council that we have at this time?
Absolutely not. I think that right now, I've heard this referred to many times across the state, is that the city council meetings are not only boring, but they're more of a very closed. I don't like this word at all, but a cult of per se. So that once you're in sort of business, and that's it. It's sort of a closed room where, with my sort of transparency for mayoral, I'd like to have everyone have their chance to vote, even just leaving a note. Um, but ideas should be passed around, right? Because it's not down to those 6 people in that room. Yes, they might be the governing body behind it, but there's so many ideas and so many opinions of citizens flowing around the state that I think that everyone needs to have a vote and say in that, because it's our state together, right? It's not just ours. We're just going to help guide it in the right direction. And if people are thinking that we're going in the wrong direction, they're going to have a clear line of communication to vote, or to voice that. Sorry, uh, to say what they want, so that we can all work together to achieve a common goal.
Well, that is great to hear that you have plans for that. So speaking more in depth on the council, you not liking it and such. Do you have any plans on replacing the members of the council, or just trying to teach them to differ their ways?
So I think right away, obviously, I'm going to employ some new stuff into there. However, I'm not against, or I am against just blatantly firing everyone or getting rid of everyone. I think that everyone deserves in that council a second chance to be taught a newer way of doing things, because they've been used to an old system, right, where they've been told one thing and that's it. Those ideas are sort of stuck within that room. So if we can teach them, and again, not everyone is adaptable to learning. Some people just can't quite get it, and that's absolutely fine. We'll offer many different ways to teach people, and then we'll slowly introduce trainees against them, so that if for any reason they need to step aside, or if they're not quite sure, they'll have someone under them who has a second opinion, who can help them and guide them in the right direction.
Very good. So speaking on, I guess, the budget, the city budget, it's, in my opinion and others, it's a little spread thin right now, having to feed money into the LSPD, BCSO, and the EMS departments that we currently have employed in the city. What is your like tactic going to be to try and make it a little bit less spread thin, so we can get the money back out to the people?
Of course. So I think a big one is having people involved in stuff, right? So with a city, we shouldn't be behind locked golden doors and behind big thick oak doors. We should be open. We should have an open door policy, and we should allow people to throw ideas into a general pool. So I think as a city, we should be taking measures and procedures to create more events and more festivals or parties, or even just collaboration events where we can all meet up and people can just chip in some money to the state. So I think that's where the main sort of fund is going to come from, and we shouldn't need to spread thin. I think if we sort of streamline all the process, like I mentioned before, of having one pot for the LSPD, and then they can spread it out between their own subdivisions. I think that's sort of the direction that we need to go as a state.
Okay, so my last question will be, as a business owner and a civilian, some could say that maybe you would favorite the businesses around the city and show a bit of favoritism toward them and their owners. To those claims, what would you say if someone were to say that to you?
So my first and foremost is businesses provide so much money to the state, right? Because they bring in tax money. So immediately businesses are a sort of priority, right? But that doesn't mean that we're going to forget about the customers who are behind them. So for that, I'd like to introduce business loans, and this may come later date, as we mentioned that the city council might be running low on funds, but there's always room to allow people to start businesses. For example, if you take a mortgage out, you don't have the funds right then and there. But what you're doing is you're providing not only the original money that you borrowed back, but you're providing an interest back. So if we introduce a system similar to that and allow people loans for businesses, we'll not only bring in more money for the state, but we'll bring in more money for that individual. Um, and they'll pay off the original loan they actually received from the state. So it'll boost our value and it'll boost their value as well. And it'll bring more customers into their shop and boost our economy.
That is very good to hear, Mr. Allen. So I'll leave it off here. I will give you this part to say, your final piece, anything else that I may have forgotten to ask you or such, and you would like put out there, I will give you this time to say.
There's not much I'd like to say, really. I just hope that everyone stays safe during these dark early winter nights, and I'd like to get everyone started with a nice home, nice roof over your head, and I enjoy seeing some of the photos and stuff that get posted, and hopefully we'll start to see some new families pop up.
Well, I thank you extensively, Mr. Allen, for allowing me to interview you and you giving answers to all the questions that I have asked you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time, guys.